How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video I'm going to be discussing a 2014 Volkswagen Golf. Has the 1.4 turbo engine, so it's the Mark 7 Golf, presented in the workshop recently with an overheating fault. So the vehicle actually got stuck on the side of the road, got towed into us, and in this video I'm going to be sharing with you the actual component that failed and a simple tip that may prevent the exact same thing happening to you if you have one of these engines. Okay, so first things first, anytime I do one of these videos I always get asked what is the part numbers and what's the engine that you're working on. And with any of my videos, if I have that information and I have crossover information, I always pop it in the description below. So please check out that information before you start asking the questions. If I have it, I always put it in the description below. So first things first, getting the vehicle into the workshop for the inspection, we can see that there's a warning on the dash, just like the customer mentioned over the phone. They also mentioned that there was steam coming from under the bonnet, and they tried topping up the coolant system to no avail. It was still overheating on them. Now, when you have the likes of them faults, the best thing to do is just stop, never continue to drive, and get the vehicle assessed straight away. This seemed to be what happened in this case. I'm not sure if they tried to drive it after topping it up a brief period and stopped again or not, but I do know they got into the workshop in a relatively quick time frame, and that should always be the case in overheating fault, unless you can find a fix it yourself very quickly on the side of the road, which usually is very uncommon to do. Now in this case the problem was quite easy to pinpoint, because when we looked down after popping the bonnet, we could see coolant loss all over the top side of the transmission. Looking above the transmission is the coolant thermostat housing and water pump assembly. And when I seen that information, I decided to just check the service history in this vehicle, because the coolant staining looked to be quite old. Now, sure enough, the customer was actually advised at the last service that the thermostat housing was actually leaking. There was a coolant buildup there, and it required further investigation and repair to be done. The customer opted not to get that done for one of two reasons. Either they completely forgot or they decided to ignore it. Either or, it turned out to be the reason why this vehicle got stuck at the side of the road. Having that information at the last service, which was quite a few thousand kilometers ago, would have saved any of this happening. Always, when it comes to preventative maintenance, you do have an option to try and solve a problem before it becomes worse. If you're getting it serviced and they're picking up these things, always advisable to speak with the technician in detail and try and go over how serious it is. This one was shared that it needed to be urgently repaired, so therefore the customer should have got it done before this happened. Anyways, it did overheat, and we're now stuck with the problem at hand. That problem turned out to be that thermostat housing and water pump leaking, but upon further inspection, when we removed the thermostat housing and water pump assembly, we were able to see that the drive belt that drives the water pump had actually failed. This is not a very common setup for some of you that don't work on Volkswagens or not familiar with them. There is a drive belt that drives the water pump on these particular engines. It isn't on the other side where the timing belt is. It's on the left hand side of the vehicle, where it drives off the camshaft to the water pump. So once that belt snapped, the vehicle was going to overheat pretty much straight away. There was no more coolant circulating throughout the system, and therefore you had an instant temperature increase and vehicle not capable of driving. Now, I would say that the coolant loss previously led to the drive belt most likely breaking. I can't be 100% sure of that, but knowing that the coolant was leaking for a very long period of time, the age of the coolant staining looks to be very old. It had been noted at the previous service history, and inside in that assembly there was coolant buildup all over. The drive belt was soaked in it for a long period of time. We can probably say that the drive belt snapped prematurely because of all of those issues. Now, this isn't going to be a play-by-play of how you remove and how you install. The only things I will note on this, because it is a pretty straightforward job, is after removal, make sure you clean up all of the attaching components completely. There's going to be a lot of crud build up if it's anywhere near like the one we have, and you want to make sure all the seals are sitting in a very clean area. Also, if the coolant has leaked and it's run off that drive belt, you're going to have it on the gear wheels as well, so you want to make sure that that is nice and clean so the drive belt can run in the gear wheels nice and clear with no crud or any build-up that could cause any issues down the road. The other thing of note on install is when you have the assembly put back on, don't tighten up the bolts, leave them hand tight all around, and on the left hand side of the assembly there is a keyway. So there's a hex key, Allen key section where you are able to tension the drive belt. You just apply tension to the drive belt and then you can secure the assembly in place. Doing this puts the correct tension on the drive belt, and it also is the proper procedure when installing these units. Afterwards, it's just tighten up everything to spec and then flush the cooling system and bleed everything out, make sure everything is all good, and the job is done. Clear the fault codes if fault codes are present in yours, and bring it for an extended road test to make sure that the problem is solved. That was the case in this one. We got all OE spec equipment. We went for genuine parts. They were sitting on the shelf from Volkswagen, so that leads me to believe that this is a common enough problem. When you ask the dealers, they don't tend to give you out that information. They don't want to be speaking bad on their brand, but if it's sitting on the shelf, you do have a good indicator that that problem has showed up in other workshops. Therefore, they're holding one for the next one to be there, readily available to sell. And that is it for this video, guys. If you have that type of engine, or I believe a 1.2 Polo as well has a similar setup to this, you do have some information that can help you prevent it. Keep an eye on your water level at all times, which you should do with any vehicle. But if you look down at the housing assembly and just below it, if there's starting to be any visibility of drips coming from there, I recommend replacement of that item immediately. At the very least, a very close inspection, and maybe get a new seal and a drive belt if you want to go down the cheaper way of fixing that. I don't know if the seals are available separately. I'm sure they are somewhere in the aftermarket section, and that could be a potential cost saving for you if you have this problem. Really hope you enjoyed this video, guys. I hope you found it beneficial and got some information out of it. If you did, please give the video a thumbs up. It really helps to get the video seen and the channel recommended through YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, please do, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.